Welcome to On Site with your host, me, Matt Brewer. Today I wanted to bring you out to a project on Munjoy Hill in Portland, Maine. It's actually on Waterville Street. Kind of go through a renovation project that we're working on currently. Go over the differences, or the difficulties of renovating in an old house. This house was built either late 1800s, early 1900s. So the framing methods and everything were totally different than what we're used to nowadays. And then kind of go just show you a few things that a lot of people don't really understand, what actually goes into renovating in an old home. Some people just, you assume that you can just add things onto a house relatively straightforward, but they don't think about all the difficulties that we run into in the field, and the different things that we have to factor into our process or our estimating when we're estimating one of these projects. And that's really what drives cost of these renovations. So today, like I said, we're on Munjoy Hill in Portland. It's a beautiful day on Friday. And right now, currently, we're standing on the third floor of this home. The third floor of this house, the room that you're standing in, it existed previously, but it wasn't what you're seeing now. Before we actually touched it, this was just the roof system that came down, and the roof system came and ended pretty much right where this wall is right here. What we did was we ended up ripping the roof off of this house, and we put a full dormer on it, all new windows on this side, new Anderson 400 series is what the owner wanted to go with. Trying to frame a new roof into an old roof system, again, it's a little complicated, but with the right guys, you can get we can do anything. So as you see here, the old subfloors back in the day, they weren't plywood, they were old pine boards. These pine boards, they're not level, they're not even, they're not fastened down properly. That's where you get a lot of squeaks in floors. If you go to an old house or even a new house and you're walking around on the floor system and you hear squeaks under your feet, that's most likely because the subfloor itself isn't fastened down properly. Or it's, the nails are coming loose in the subfloor. So what we do with these old floors is we'll go and we'll screw the existing these boards down with screws to try to get rid of that squeak, because last thing you want to do is spend a lot of money on renovations and brand new floors and have squeaks. So we'll go through and we'll screw this whole floor down to the existing floor joist to prevent any squeaks from happening. Now we can't guarantee it's not going to happen, but it's a good method to prevent that issue. This floor is getting a traditional pine floor, face nailed. It's more of a sitting room. It's not really it's more for the owner. She didn't want to go with a 2 1/4 red oak or anything like that. So we're going to do a pine floor upstairs. It will look actually really nice. I actually like the pine floor. It's a nice look. The other thing that you notice in an old house is staircases. As you can see, this staircase doesn't meet code. This staircase would never meet code. It's actually, the old staircase is actually somewhat dangerous to nowadays standards. You can tell that, the riser heights, your riser height is what is from tread to tread. The riser heights on these are probably 10 inches in height, and they vary from step to step. But because it's an existing home, the stairs are already pre-existing, we don't have to modify them. As long as I don't touch them, I don't have to do anything with them. So we're going to leave the stairs the way they are, because that's the way they've been for 100 years. And in order for me to build a stair to code in a house like this now, it would take a lot of effort, and it would take up a lot more room in the space itself. So these stairs are staying, and they're just going to get painted. Just watch your step as you're coming down. Good, how are you? You're currently on the second floor of this project. This is the kitchen. On this particular part of the project, what we did was, you can see the carrying beam above me. That's where the existing house ended, and this is where the new addition began. So what we did is we bumped this out. There's a flat roof on top, which you couldn't really see from the previous video, or the previous room. And there's a second floor deck that's built over the first floor deck, which is what we're working on currently. What we ended up using for doors on this one are the Anderson French wood sliders. It's a full glass wall. The center 2 panels slide open. Another thing people don't understand about these doors is the difficulty of installing these doors. As you can see, it's a very large system. The nice thing about them, they don't come all put together. So the way that these doors get delivered to us is they come in pieces. Each panel comes separate and then the frame comes separate. So what we have to do to install them is we have to assemble the door in the field. We have to get it to its location, assemble it, and install it. A lot of people don't realize that when they're pricing out a new door system and they're wondering, well, why is it so much money to install one of these doors? There's a lot of work that goes into a very large door like this. Not to mention assembling it, but then trying to get this door plumb, square, and level in a hole to make sure that it functions properly, so that when you want to go close it, it doesn't take a lot of effort to open and close it. Another difficulty in an old house, which is kind of the thing I wanted to show you before, was if you look at the floor system, we're putting a new addition up against, so this is new, this is old, well, this is a new floor system, this is the old floor system. When we built the new floor system to meet this one, the old floor from this point to the other wall was 2.5 inches out of level. 2.5 inches in 16 feet it's a lot. So when we build the new floor system, we have to build it level, meet up to the old floor system, and then you can see the plywood underneath this floor. So what we had to do, remove all the sheathing, the existing sheathing, which is the sheathing I showed you on the 3rd floor, and then feather the floor up in certain areas and down in other areas to meet the new floor, so that when you lay your new hardwood flooring down, it looks seamless. There's no, from the naked eye, you can't see that where the old and the new begin and stop. So again, it's one of those things that a lot of people, when they're wanting to do a renovation in their old home, they're going through the pricing process. These are things that they, as an average consumer, you just don't, you're not thinking about, because you're just assuming that when I build a new one, the new addition onto the old one, everything's going to tie up and be okay. You're not thinking about, well, in an old house, especially 100 years old, these old houses have moved, they've settled, they've shifted. 100 years ago, they didn't have building codes like we have today. They didn't have technology like we had today. So most of them just, they're not square, they're not level, they're just out of whack. So it's not like you're building to something that's already perfect. So it's one of those things that you just have to, as a builder, you have to be aware of when you're going into a renovation like this, all that little extra time that it takes, because trying to marry a new floor to an old floor, it takes quite a bit of time to get that to work properly. As you can see, just to show you what I'm trying to avoid, I have a squeak in my floor. So what we have done is we marked it. We know that we have a squeak, it's right here. So now I'm gonna have to pull those floorboards and figure out why I have a squeak in that floor, because like I said, I can't justify putting a brand new floor in a house and having floor squeaks. It's not something that we would accept. I wouldn't accept it in my house, I can't accept it in your house. So, the last thing I wanted to kind of go over with you as far as renovating an old house, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are very difficult to renovate an old house. The last thing is moldings. Moldings of old houses, you can't just go buy them. You can't go to a store and get them. You have to either have them custom made, or you have to change the molding profile of the room. We're not fans of changing the molding profile of a room because it kind of goes against who we are. We're woodworkers, but it also changes the feel of the room. A lot of these old houses have very large moldings. This base molding, for example, that's a solid one-piece base. That's not a base cap, that's an actual solid board. You can't just go buy this, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this in our shop. So we have the ability to produce and match any molding that we find in these old houses. We have we have a 5-head SCMI molder at our office or at our shop that we can cut our own knives, and we can make pretty much any molding to match what is in these old houses. So that's another benefit for us to have a millwork shop, is to be able to make sure that when we're done with this project, the new moldings that we're putting in, they marry right to the old moldings and everything looks like it was always there. That's just another difficult part of renovating old houses. A lot of times you'll go into an old house and you'll see that, you'll go into one room, you'll see this beautiful intricate molding, and then you'll go to a room that was currently renovated and they changed all the moldings to something that they could purchase at the local lumberyard or the local supply house. It's just not something that we're comfortable doing. We're, like I said, we pride ourselves on being able to make sure that when we leave this house, it looks like it was always supposed to be here. The other thing I'd like to show you is it's a new deck system that we're using. It's on the outside. It's instead of using a precast concrete pier or sonotubes that you have to you dig down and you mix concrete and you got to fill it in and let it cure. We are now using, it's called Techno Post, and it's a galvanized steel post with a screw kind of bottom, looks like a screw tip, and it gets screwed down into the ground and it gets a cap put on it that we can build off of, and I'd love to show you that.
We'll put a rock over it.
There you go. So, what I was talking about upstairs was called a Techno Post. It's a galvanized steel post. A lot of times when you did a deck like this, or you do a deck like this, you're either using a 48-inch or a 60-inch precast concrete pier with a bottom on it, or you're doing a sonotube that you have to dig. You put a sonotube in the ground, you mix concrete, you pour it in, or even what they call a Bigfoot. I find the Bigfoots and the sonotubes, unless they're specifically specified by an engineer to use, we've started using these. That helical Techno Post takes less time, it's more cost effective, it lasts longer than a lifetime, and when they get done putting it in, they cut the top off, they put a cap on it, in a couple hours we can start building. I don't have to wait for concrete to cure, I don't have to worry about it not being plumb. It's a really good system. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you about today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to doing another episode and showing you another project of ours, and happy Friday, and thanks for watching On Site with Matt.